Namaste. Aloha. My name is Janapati Das, and we are going to continue on with Krishna Katha, Krishna story, reading from the storybook. So please accept my most humble obeisances. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto my spiritual master. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Siddhaswarupananda Paramahamsa Iti Namine. And so, as always, we will start with our kirtan, hearing and repeating of Krishna's names. Feel free to take part. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Siddhaswarupananda Paramahamsa Iti Namine Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Siddhaswarupananda Paramahamsa Iti Namine Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasudeva Bhakta Vrinda Bhaja Shri Haribol. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Welcome back to the Krishna book reading. Last video, unfortunately, we were finishing up the marriage of Samba and my video cut off. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the very last part of marriage of Samba and continue into the story of Narada Muni. So, for the most part, it was a practice of the Kshatriya kings to inaugurate some kind of fighting between the parties of the bride and bridegroom before the marriage. When Samba forcibly took away Lakshman, the elderly members of the Kuru dynasty were pleased to see that he was actually the suitable match for her. In order to see his personal strength, however, they fought with him, and without any respect for the regulations of fighting, they all arrested him. When the Yadu dynasty decided to release Samba from the confinement of the Kurus, Lord Balaram came personally to settle the matter, and as a powerful Kshatriya, he ordered them to free Samba immediately. Excuse me. The Kauravas became superficially insulted by this order, so they challenged Lord Balaram's power. They simply wanted to see him exhibit his inconceivable strength. Thus, with great pleasure, they handed over their daughter to Samba, and the whole matter was settled. Duryodhana, being affectionate towards his daughter, Lakshman, had her married to Samba in great pomp. For her dowry, he first gave 1,200 elephants, each of which were at least 60 years old. Then he gave 10,000 nice horses, 6,000 chariots, which were dazzling just like the sunshine, and 1,000 maidservants who were decorated with golden ornaments. Lord Balaram, the most prominent member of the Yadu dynasty, acted as guardian of the bridegroom Samba and very pleasingly accepted the dowry. Balaram was very satisfied after his great reception from the side of the Kurus, and accompanied by the newly married couple, he started towards his capital city of Dwarka. Lord Balaram triumphantly reached Dwarka, where he met with many citizens who were all his devotees and friends. When they all assembled, Lord Balaram narrated the whole story of the marriage, and they were astonished to hear how Balaram had made the city of Hastinapura tremble. So as you remember, he had gone there as a mediator between the Kurus and the Yadus to basically release Samba without any major fighting going on between them. And because Lord Balaram was affectionate to people in the Kuru dynasty, and of course to the Yadu dynasty because his brother Krishna was there. So he thought, okay, I want to stop a war, so I'll just, there's no need to have a fight, let's just solve this. And of course they were very insulting to Lord Balaram. Lord Balaram got very, very angry and immediately decided to destroy Hastinapura and the whole Kuru dynasty by dragging it with his plow. So he's dragging the city. And they immediately came to their senses and begged his forgiveness and gave him Samba, and there was a marriage to Lakshmana. And all was well, as always goes with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, always resolves the situation. It is confirmed by Shukadev Goswami that the site of Hastinapura is now known as New Delhi, and the river flowing through the city is called the Jamuna, although in those days it was known as the Ganges. From authorities like Jiva Goswami, it is also confirmed that the Ganges and the Jamuna are the same river flowing in different courses. The part of the Ganges which flows through Hastinapura to the area of Vrindavan is called the Jamuna, because it is sanctified by the transcendental pastimes of Lord Krishna. The part of Hastinapura which slopes towards the Jamuna becomes inundated during the rainy season and reminds everyone of Lord Balaram's threatening to cast the city into the Ganges. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the second volume, 33rd chapter of Krishna, the marriage of Samba. So, now we're going to get into this very exciting story, as they always are. The great sage Narada Muni, right, visits the different homes of Lord Krishna. The great sage Narada heard that Lord Krishna had married 16,000 wives after he had killed the demon Narakasura, sometimes called Baumasura. Narada became astonished that Lord Krishna had expanded himself into 16,000 forms and married these wives simultaneously in different palaces. So this is the inconceivable, just a fraction of the inconceivable energies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that he can expand himself into so many, many things. You know, he expands himself into the different expansions of Lord Vishnu and the universes and the Mahavishnus and the and the Kshirodaksha Vishnus and all the Lord Brahmas and the Lord Shivas and all the living entities and all these things that are inconceivable by the human mind, can barely even scratch the surface of the material world, let alone known about the inconceivable energies of Krishna. And so Lord Krishna had, he had these 16,108 wives, right? And he has innumerable gopis. So during the rasa dance, he was able to expand himself into a Krishna for each of the gopis, to dance with all the unlimited gopis during the rasa dance, where they perceived that Krishna was dancing only with them alone. Similarly, I should say, when we had the story of Lord Brahma hiding the cowherd boys and the cows in the caves from Krishna, right? Trying to fool Krishna. Krishna expanded himself through his Vishnu tattvas. He expanded himself into many, many different cowherd boys and cows and calves, and perceived that actually they were all there. So when Lord Brahma came back, he saw all these. He was like, what's going on? It's like. And then, of course, Krishna was able to show his manifestation of all the Lord Brahmas, and that came with multiple heads, more than 4 of this universe that Lord Brahma has, 4 heads, but many universes have millions, thousands, millions, billions of heads. All the multiple dimensions of the inconceivable number of universes. So we're baffled. The material scientist is baffled by the nature of this universe. Even when they think they have a grasp on, they have all these theories, they're like all these things, they get a little bit more powerful telescope and they peer out into space, or they get a more powerful microscope and they look further in, and everything that they had set up to try to explain the nature of the universe collapses. They don't. They're like, so recently this happened again. They got this web. I think it's a Webb telescope that they sent out, and it's much more powerful and much more high definition than the Hubble telescope, right? So they saw all these chains of universes and galaxies, and they everything they had set up to try to explain the nature of the creation of this universe fell apart. They're sitting there scratching their heads. Everything fell apart. They're baffled. So this material universe is so inconceivable to the puny little minds, which are pretty amazing by our standard, right? We can create things, we can do things, with our human mind, but just to try to even understand the universe, let alone the nature of God. So people are like, these scientists, these atheist scientists, are like, oh, where is God? Where is God? How is it that I cannot perceive God with my mind? Hello? You can't even perceive things in the universe, let alone to perceive those things that are spiritual in nature with your puny little mind that's material. So speculation and mental speculation will never, ever be able to capture Krishna. Only by loving undivided, unalloyed devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead can one understand the mysteries of Krishna, understand Krishna, love Krishna, not by our trying to ascend with our little puny mind. So this is what we're saying. So Krishna he's expanded himself to all these queens. So if we had 16,000 wives, I'd try to do the math. It's kind of like if you had 16,000 wives and there's 365 days in a year, you wouldn't see if you had to see a wife every day, you wouldn't see all your wives it would be something like, 40 years or 30 years that you actually saw all 16,000 wives, or 25 or 30 years or something like that. One time, one day, but Krishna was able to be with all the wives simultaneously, and they all perceived him to be henpecked, and they're dear Krishna only. It's really wonderful. Being inquisitive as to how Krishna was managing his household affairs with so many wives, Narada desired to see these pastimes, and so to set out to visit Krishna's different homes. When Narada arrived in Dwarka, he saw that the gardens and parks were full of various flowers of different colors, and orchards that were overloaded with a variety of fruits. Beautiful birds were chirping, and peacocks were delightfully crowing. There were tanks and ponds full of blue and red lotus flowers, and some of these sites were filled with varieties of lilies. The lakes were full of nice swans and cranes whose voices resounded everywhere. In the city there were as many as 900,000 great palaces, built of first-class marble with gates and doors made of silver. Talk about a city, 900,000 palaces, amazing. All made of this totally expensive material, marble and silver and gold and diamonds and sapphires. The posts of these houses and palaces were bedecked with jewels such as touchstones, sapphires, and emeralds, and the floors gave off a beautiful luster. The highways, lanes, streets, crossings, and marketplaces were all beautifully decorated. The whole city was full of residential homes, assembly houses, and temples, all of different architectural beauty. All of this made Dwarka a glowing city. The big avenues, crossings, lanes, streets, and also the thresholds of every residential house were very clean. On both sides of every path there were bushes, and at regular intervals there were large trees that shaded the avenues so that the sunshine would not bother the passerby. In this great beautiful city of Dwarka, Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, had many residential quarters. The great kings and princes of the world used to visit these palaces just to worship him. The architectural plans were made personally by Vishvakarma, the engineer of the demigods, and in construction of the palaces he exhibited all of his talents and ingenuity. These residential quarters numbered more than 16,000, and a different queen of Lord Krishna resided in each of them. The great sage Narada entered one of these houses and saw that the pillars were made of coral, and the ceilings were bedecked with jewels. The walls, as well as the arches between the pillars, glowed from the decorations of different kinds of sapphires. Throughout the palace there were many canopies made by Vishvakarma that were decorated with strings of pearls. The chairs and other furniture were made of ivory, bedecked with gold and diamonds, and jeweled lamps dissipated the darkness within the palace. There was so much incense and flavored gum burning that the scented fumes were coming out of the windows. The peacock sitting on the step became illusioned by the fumes, mistaking them for clouds, and then began dancing jubilantly. There were many maidservants, all of whom were decorated with gold necklaces, bangles, and beautiful saris. There were also many male servants, who were nicely dressed in cloaks and turbans and jeweled earrings. Beautiful as they were, the servants were all engaged in different household duties. Narada saw that Lord Krishna was sitting with Rukmini Devi, the mistress of that particular palace, who was bearing the rod of a chamara whisk. Even though there were many thousands of maidservants who were equally beautiful and qualified, and who were of the same age, Rukmini Devi personally was engaged in fanning Lord Krishna. So as is the custom when a prince will marry a princess, the queen, when he becomes queen, will bring many of her girlfriends to become maidservants of her husband. So this is another situation. Also friends, servants, but mostly friends, servants to the queen, friends, and to have friends. Rukmini Devi personally was engaged in fanning Lord Krishna. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of God and worshipped even by Narada, but still, as soon as he saw Narada enter the palace, Krishna got down immediately from Rukmini's bedstead and stood up to honor him. Lord Krishna is the teacher of the whole world, and in order to instruct everyone how to respect a saintly person like Narada Muni, Krishna bowed down, touching his helmet to the ground. Not only did Krishna bow down, but he also touched the feet of Narada and with folded hands requested him to sit on his chair. Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality worshipped by all devotees. He is the most worshipped spiritual master of everyone. The Ganges water which emanates from his feet sanctifies the three worlds. All qualified Brahmanas worship him, and therefore he is called Brahmanya Deva. So this is something that's mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, that what great men do, common men will follow. Krishna tells Arjuna that if you're going to act outside of your nature and just do what you want to do, those people that don't have the spiritual vision will be like, I don't want to do my duty. I don't want to do the work that I'm working in. You know, like for example, Arjuna was a warrior, right? He was a warrior, first class warrior, but he wanted to go off and do yogi. So Krishna is saying, well, no, because what you do, people will look to you as a hero and as a great person, and then think, well, if Arjuna could do it, you know. Similarly, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He doesn't need to follow rules and regulations or householder duties or anything. He is the most worshipful Lord, but he set the example for in the Varnashram systems for people to follow that of what was expected to be done in householder life, but also the fact that when a pure devotee like Narada Muni or great saint or a Brahmana comes into your midst, you worship him as the same as if you were to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So it doesn't matter whether Krishna, you know, because Krishna was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he set that example, and he actually showed the way to how to do that. So he was touching his feet, he was paying his obeisances, he gave him a place to sit, and we worshipped him. Brahmanya means one who fully possesses the Brahminical qualifications, which are said to be as follows: truthfulness, self-control, purity, mastery of the senses, simplicity, full knowledge by practical application, and engagement in devotional service. This is actually listed in the Bhagavad Gita as well, so I'll just read it again. You could do a class on each of these. Truthfulness, self-control, purity, mastery of the senses, simplicity, full knowledge by practical application, and engagement in devotional service. This last one is extremely important. Lord Krishna personally possesses all these qualities, and he is worshipped by persons who themselves possessed such qualities. There are thousands and millions of names of Lord Krishna, Vishnu Sahasra Nama, and all of them are given to him because of his transcendental qualities. So this is also a really important point. Krishna has innumerable names of God that have different flavors and different relationships with the devotees of God in, you know, the particular part of the world or different parts of the universe. Some names, you know, we know, like Allah, Jehovah, Gopala, Govinda, you know, Abba. There's a lot of names that we kind of know from different world religions, but there are many, many names that we are not really aware of, and they all represent Krishna in a different aspect, usually in different aspects or different kinds of moods. Lord Krishna is the most sweet and the most attractive name, because Krishna itself means the most attractive and most beautiful. So Lord Krishna in Dwarka enjoyed the pastimes of a perfect human being. When he washed the feet of the sage Narada and took the water on his head, Narada did not object, knowing well that the Lord did so to teach everyone how to respect saintly persons. Now Krishna, this is set by Krishna in the first place. He wants his devotees to be worshipped because the devotees are unalloyed devotees of Krishna. They are dear to the Supreme Personality of Godhead because of their complete and utter surrender and devotion to the Lord. So when a pure devotee like my spiritual teacher and Bhaktivedanta Swami, when they're not out to get followers and worshipers, people to worship them and enjoy being, you know, worshipped and given honor and respect. They actually feel lower than the straw on the street, but they know that that is the standard that Krishna wants, that is pleasing to Krishna, so they therefore don't object when their disciples and their devotees actually offer respect to them. They feel extremely humble and not worthy of that, but at the same time, they understand that it is expected by Krishna. And Krishna set that example right here. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, who is the original Narayan, an eternal friend of all living entities, thus worshipped the sage Narada according to Vedic regulative principles. Welcoming him with sweet nectarian words, he addressed Narada as Bhagavan, or one who is self-sufficient, possessing all kinds of knowledge, renunciation, strength, fame, beauty, and similar other opulences. He particularly asked Narada, what can I do in your service? So Bhagavan is also a name that refers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but there can be the pure devotee Bhagavan as well. So here is another thing. He particularly asked Narada, what can I do in your service? When you approach the spiritual master and you give your life and you surrender to the spiritual master, you ask them, what can I do in your service? Because the pure devotee of Krishna, the dear devotee of Krishna, the spiritual master, is in full service of Krishna. And we beg that we would be, even despite our incapable screw-ups and mess-ups and just stupidity, we beg to be in service of the spiritual master. And so we ask the spiritual master, what can I do in your service? Oftentimes, many times, the highest form of service that the spiritual master will say is to chant Krishna's names. Chant Krishna's names as much as possible. Hear and chant Krishna's names and share it with others. That is Lord Chaitanya's mission, and that is our dear Guru Dev's mission. So this is the greatest service. So Narada replied, my dear Lord, this kind of behavior by your lordship is not at all astonishing, because you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead and master of all species of living entities. You are the supreme friend of all living entities. But at the same time, you are the supreme chastiser of the miscreants and the envious. I know that your lordship has descended on this earth for the proper maintenance of the whole universe. Your appearance, therefore, is not forced by any other agency. By your sweet will only, you agree to appear and disappear. So Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the source of all things, all universes, all material worlds, and all spiritual worlds, all spiritual energy. So unlike the incorrect and offensive philosophy by Mayavadi impersonalist philosophers who say that God splits himself up or comes under the influence of the material energy and is illusioned, this is incorrect. And it's said here by Narada Muni. He's self-sufficient. He's Atmarama. He's not, whereas the living entity, although part and parcel of the Supreme, is minute and is a marginal potency of Krishna, so therefore can be influenced by the external energies of Krishna, of Maya Devi. But Krishna does not have that. He is the source of all such things. So he is self-sufficient. He has complete knowledge, complete renunciation, complete strength, complete fame, complete beauty, and all the other opulences that are listed, many of which are not known. It's said that Sheshananga, the great snake hood umbrella, Lord Balaram, though with so many mouths, is just barely able to scratch the surface of great praises and wonderful things that when trying to praise the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And it's unlimited. Narada replied, my dear Lord, okay, so I read that. Your appearance, therefore, is not forced by any other agency. By your sweet will only, you agree to appear and disappear. We can see this in many stories where people are praying, demigods are praying, please, dear Lord, come. Sri Advaita Acharya prayed to Lord Sri Krishna to come as Lord Chaitanya. So we see this again and again. It is my great fortune that I have been able to see your lotus feet today. Anyone who comes attached to your lotus feet is elevated to the supreme position of neutrality and is uncontaminated by the material modes of nature. My Lord, you are unlimited. There is no limit to your opulences. Great demigods like Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva are always busy placing you within their hearts and meditating upon you. The conditioned souls who have now been put into the blind well of material existence can get out of this eternal captivity only by accepting your lotus feet. Thus you are the only shelter of all conditioned souls. My dear Lord, you have very kindly asked what you can do for me. In answer to this, I simply request that I may not forget your lotus feet at any time. I do not care where I may be, but I pray that I may be allowed to continually remember your lotus feet. That is the true prayer of a pure devotee to Krishna. Does not want any kind of material benediction, does not want any material wealth or women or followers. He doesn't care. Even if Krishna kicks him away, or handles me roughly by his embrace, He's always the worshipful Lord. Please don't let me forget you. Please don't let me forget you. I always wish to remember you and remember your service, wherever I may be. That benediction, the benediction which the sage Narada asked from the Lord, is the ideal prayer of all pure devotees. A pure devotee never asks for any kind of material or spiritual benediction from the Lord, but his only prayer is that he may not forget the lotus feet of the Lord in any condition of life. A pure devotee does not care whether he is put in heaven or hell. He is satisfied anywhere, provided he can constantly remember the lotus feet of the Lord. So many people, who are so-called religious, they have good intentions, but their desire is that, please, Lord, don't save me from hell, or please, Lord, let me go to heaven so that I may enjoy with my family and friends and my dogs. And it's like, I see this all over the place. But the pure devotee just wants to remember God, serve God, be remembering God wherever he may be, whether he's sent to the hellish planets, the lowest hellish planets, or to the highest heavenly planets. He's not attached, even to go to the spiritual world, if he is going to forget Krishna. He only wants to be in the service of Krishna. Lord Chaitanya also taught this same process of prayer in his Shikshashtaka, his prayers, right? In which he clearly stated that all he wanted was devotional service, birth after birth. A pure devotee does not even want to stop the repetition of birth and death. To a pure devotee, it does not matter whether he has to take birth again in the various species of life. His only ambition is that he may not forget the lotus feet of the Lord in any condition of life. This is the meaning of unalloyed devotional service, of Krishna consciousness. It's this love song. When you're in love with someone, you don't care about your own well-being. You don't care. You care only about the well-being of the one you love, that you may never forget them. So the desire for salvation, to go to heaven, is still a selfish desire. You may be doing some pious things in your life in service to God with the intention. It's not unalloyed devotion. It's still divided. You're thinking, okay, maybe I'll sacrifice a little bit in this life, but I'll go to eternal pleasures of wonderful things, whether it's the Islamic 72 virgins and gardens, or it's, the heavenly planets of Christians where there are gold streets, and, you get to be there with I've seen these pictures, they're like everybody, all their family members and their dog, and, this is their idea of like what spiritual life really means, but it's not even scratching the surface. After departing from the palace of Rukmini, Naradaji wanted to see the activities of Lord Krishna, Krishna's internal potency. Yogamaya. Thus he entered the palace of another queen. There he saw Lord Krishna engaged in playing chess along with his dear wife in Uddhava. The Lord immediately got up from his seat and invited Narada Muni to sit on his personal seat. The Lord again worshipped him with as much paraphernalia for reception as he had had in the palace of Rukmini. After worshipping him properly, Lord Krishna acted as if he did not know what had happened in the palace of Rukmini. So, Krishna is doing a completely different thing and having relationships with his queens there and his devotees and the maidservants and servants, and they're all in a different scenario, as you'll see. After worshipping properly, Lord Krishna acted as if he did not know what had happened in the palace of Rukmini. He therefore told Narada, "My dear sage, when your holiness comes here, you are a fool in yourself. Although we are householders and are always in need, you don't require anyone's help because you are self-satisfied. Under the circumstances, what reception can we offer you, and what can we possibly give you? Yet since your holiness is a Brahmana, it is our duty to offer you something as far as possible. Therefore, I beg your pleasure to order me. What can I do for you?" So here's Krishna doing this same kind of thing with Narada Muni, right? He's setting that example. How can I serve you? Because even the great devotee, the pure devotee, is self-satisfied. He's all, I'm a Rama. In the service of Krishna, they are unalloyed. They are completely satisfied in their service to Krishna. So it's a different kind of like self-satisfaction, but it is of the same ilk, right? Narada Ji knew everything about the pastimes of the Lord, so without any further discussion, he simply left the palace silently in great astonishment over the Lord's activities. He then entered another palace. So it's not like Krishna is like, oh, well, Narada Muni just left. He knows what's going on. He knows this. He's enjoying this, being able to share this with his devotee of the opulences of Krishna. This time, Naradaji saw that Lord Krishna was engaged as an affectionate father petting his small children. From there, he entered another palace and saw Lord Krishna preparing to take his bath. In this way, Saint Narada entered each and every one of the 16,000 residential palaces of the queens of Lord Krishna, and each of them he found Krishna engaged in different ways. I like how they call it Saint Narada, right? He's a true saint. Sometimes you get these saints, so-called saints in other religions, and they turn out to be kind of like rascals, but somehow or another they got sainthood. Not all of them, of course. We know Saint Francis was a pure devotee, and there were, Saint Teresa of Lisieux, and some really, wonderful saints, dear devotees of Jesus. In one place, he found Krishna engaged in offering oblations to the sacrificial fire and performing the ritualistic ceremonies of the Vedas as enjoined for householders. So see, he's sitting there and he's doing all these things that householders are supposed to do that he doesn't really need to do, but he's setting that example. He's the perfect householder. In another palace, Krishna was found performing the Pancha Yajna sacrifice, which is compulsory for a householder. This yajna is known as Pancha Shuna. Knowingly or unknowingly, everyone, specifically the householder, is committing 5 kinds of sinful activities. When we receive water from a water pitcher, we kill many germs that are in it. Similarly, when we use a grinding machine or take foodstuffs, we kill many germs. When sweeping a floor or igniting a fire, we kill many germs. And when we walk on the street, we kill many ants and other insects. Consciously or unconsciously, in all our different activities, we are killing. Therefore, it is incumbent upon every householder to perform the Pancha Shuna sacrifice to rid himself of the reactions of sinful activities. In this age of Kali Yuga, it's very difficult to follow a lot of these things, but that's a very good point in the fact that even living a very peaceful life, even as a vegetarian or trying to be peaceful, not cause any harm to others, you're consistently killing all day long. And even this is just the planet of death. We just can't help but kill things for our survival, or consciously or unconsciously. Even just me sitting on this chair, I'm probably killing millions of germs, and I go to the sink and wash my hands and drown a bunch of germs. So, but the activities that we do in our life in the service of Krishna, they could be just the karma yoga that we do helps alleviate the karma of, we do not incur new, it alleviates the karma, but it also, the bad karma, but it also incurs the good or bad karma in the activities that we do day to day. Right, it's sort of like unplugging a fan when you're chanting Krishna's names, when you're engaging in the service of Krishna. This is the activities that may seem very much like what most people are doing: going to work, cooking, raising your family, relating to people in your family, going to the store, driving places. Just those kind of things can all become services to Krishna, because we can engage on, offer all those things to Krishna in service to him. In one palace, Lord Krishna was found engaged in feeding brahmanas after performing ritualistic yajnas. In another palace, Narada found Krishna engaged in silently chanting the Gayatri mantra. And in a third, he found him practicing fighting with a sword and shield. In some palaces, Lord Krishna was found riding on horses or elephants or chariots and wandering hither and thither. Elsewhere, he was found lying down on his bedstead, taking rest, and somewhere else he was found sitting in his chair, being praised by the prayers of his different devotees. In some of the palaces, he was found consulting with ministers like Uddhava, and others on important matters of business. In one palace, he was found surrounded by many young society girls enjoying in a swimming pool. In another palace, he was found engaged in giving well-decorated cows and charities to the brahmanas. And in another palace he was found hearing the narrations of the Puranas and histories, such as the Mahabharata, which are supplementary literatures for disseminating Vedic knowledge to common people by narrating important instances in the history of the universe. Somewhere, Lord Krishna was found enjoying the company of a particular wife by exchanging joking words with her. Somewhere else, he was found engaged along with his wife in religious ritualistic functions. Since it is necessary for householders to increase their financial assets for various expenditures, Krishna was found somewhere engaged in matters of economic development. Somewhere else, he was found enjoying family life according to the regulative principles of the Shastras. So there's a lot of things that are here, rules and regulations, and there's different divisions of life and divisions of aspects of life, like economic development, sense gratification, religiosity, and ultimately liberation. But above that, of course, is devotional service to Krishna. But we all have to engage in our economic development. We do have some amount of sense pleasure that we try to keep modified and regulated. We have the sense gratification, religiosity, religious rituals that we engage in to help us regulate our life and help us focus towards Krishna, or towards God at least. And of course, liberation. Liberation is, oftentimes people think about it in the Judeo-Islamic sort of tradition as the relief of sinful activity, right? Liberation, to be liberated from your sinful activities, or salvationism. But actually, in engaging in the service of Krishna, liberation is sort of automatic in that. So that's not a major point but here, Krishna is being the perfect householder, engaging in all these things to set the example for people. In one palace, he was found sitting in meditation as if he were concentrating his mind on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is beyond these material universes. Krishna loves to meditate on himself. He's so beautiful, he just loves to meditate on himself. It's great. Perfectly self-centered person. Meditation, as recommended in authorized scripture, is meant for concentrating one's mind on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu. That's the point of meditation. Lord Krishna is himself the original Vishnu, but because he played the part of a human being, he taught us definitely by his personal behavior what is meant by meditation. Somewhere, Lord Krishna was found satisfying elderly superiors by supplying them things which they needed. Somewhere else, Narada found that Lord Krishna was engaged in discussing topics of fighting. Somewhere else, he was making peace with enemies. Somewhere, Lord Krishna was found discussing the ultimate auspicious activities for the entire human society with his other brother, Lord Balaram. Narada saw Lord Krishna engaged in getting his sons and daughters married with suitable brides and bridegrooms in due course of time, and the marriage ceremonies were being performed with great pomp. In one palace, he was found bidding farewell to his daughters, and in another, he was found receiving a daughter-in-law. People throughout the whole city were astonished to see such pomp and ceremony. Somewhere, the Lord was seen engaged in performing different types of sacrifices to satisfy the demigods, who are only his qualitative expansions. Somewhere, he was seen engaged in public welfare activities, establishing deep wells for water supply, rest houses and gardens for unknown guests, and great monasteries and temples for saintly persons. These are some of the duties enjoined in the Vedas for householders for fulfillment of their material desires. So see, Krishna is setting the example for all these kind of duties, right, that the householders have. Somewhere, Krishna was found as a Kshatriya king engaged in hunting animals in the forest and riding on a very beautiful Sindhi horses. According to Vedic regulations, the Kshatriyas were allowed to kill prescribed animals on certain occasions, either to maintain peace in the forest or to offer animals in the sacrificial fire. Kshatriyas are allowed to practice this killing art because they have to kill their enemies mercilessly to maintain peace in society. So another situation that in the day of Kali Yuga that is not really practiced properly, so it's not really recommended. The sacrifice, the most important sacrifice for this day and age, is the hearing and repeating of Krishna's holy names. In one situation, the great sage Narada saw Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead and Master of Mystic Powers, acting as a spy by changing his usual dress in order to understand the motives of different citizens in the city and within the palaces. Saint Narada saw all these activities of the Lord, who is the supersoul of all living entities, but who played the role of an ordinary human being in order to manifest the activities of his internal potency. He was smiling within himself and began to address the Lord as follows: My dear Lord of all mystic powers, object of the meditation of great mystics, the extent of your mystic power is certainly inconceivable, even to mystics like Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. But by your mercy, because of my being always engaged in the transcendental loving service of your lotus feet, your Lordship has very kindly revealed to me the actions of your internal potency. My dear Lord, you are worshipable by all, and demigods and predominating deities of all 14 planetary systems are completely aware of your transcendental fame. Now please give me your blessings so that I may be able to travel all over the universes, singing the glories of your transcendental activities. So talk about astronomy. The Vedic tradition had an understanding of the universe that scientists didn't even know about. I still don't even know about. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, replied to Narada as follows: My dear Narada, O sage of the demigods, among the demigods, you know that I am the supreme instructor and perfect follower of all religious principles, as well as the supreme enforcer of such principles. I am therefore personally executing such religious principles in order to teach the whole world how to act. My dear son, it is my desire that you not be bewildered by such demonstrations of my internal energy. The Supreme Personality of Godhead was engaged in his so-called household affairs in order to teach people how one can sanctify one's household life, although he may be attached to the imprisonment of material existence. So this Varnashram system, the Vedic system, so complicated, so detailed, so specific, for people to help elevate people who are entrenched in the material world and attached heavily to the material attachments. Actually, one is obliged to continue the term of material existence because of household life, but the Lord, being very kind upon householders, demonstrated the path of sanctifying ordinary household life. Because Krishna is the center of all activities, that's the key. A Krishna-conscious householder's life is transcendental to Vedic injunction and is automatically sanctified. So beyond that, we understand that we put Krishna in our householder life. We worship Krishna, we take care of the deities, we offer our food to Krishna, we teach our children about Krishna, we help our wives, our husbands to come closer and serve our spiritual master in Krishna. This is above the traditional Vedic ritualistic systems that are mentioned herein. Thus, Narada saw one single Krishna living in 16,000 palaces by his plenary expansions. Due to his inconceivable energy, he was visible in each and every individual queen's palace. Lord Krishna has unlimited power, and Narada's astonishment was boundless upon observing again and again the demonstration of Lord Krishna's internal energy. Lord Krishna behaved by his personal example as if he were very much attached to the four principles of civilized life, namely religiousness, economic development, sense gratification, and salvation. These four principles of material existence are necessary for the spiritual advancement of human society, and although Lord Krishna had no need to do so, he exhibited his household activities so that people might follow in his footsteps for their own interests. So this practice was actually regulated. But in this day and age, we do have economic development, and we have sense gratification heavily. We have some religiosity, but it's not really, it's mostly merged in those other two. And we don't really have a salvation or desire for salvation as much as we have desire for elevation to enjoy God's kingdom, basically, which is sort of an extension of economic development. So those kind of things are not really practiced so thoroughly. But as a devotee of Krishna, you can engage in these things and purify your existence in the material world to come back to Krishna. These four principles of material existence are necessary for the spiritual advancement of human society. And although Lord Krishna had no need to do so. He exhibited his household activities so that people might follow in his footsteps for their own interest. Lord Krishna satisfied the sage Narada in every way. Narada was very much pleased by seeing the Lord's activities in Dwarka, and thus he departed. In narrating the activities of Lord Krishna in Dwarka, Shukadeva Goswami explained to King Parikshit how Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, descends on this material universe by the agency of his internal potency and personally exhibits the principles which, if followed, can lead one to achieve the ultimate goal of life. All the queens in Dwarka, more than 16,000 in number, engaged their feminine attractive features in the transcendental service of the Lord by smiling and serving, and the Lord was pleased to behave with them exactly as a perfect husband enjoying household life. One should know definitely that such pastimes cannot be performed by anyone but Lord Sri Krishna. Lord Sri Krishna is the original cause of the creation, maintenance, and dissolution of the whole cosmic manifestation. Anyone who attentively hears the narrations of the Lord's pastimes in Dwarka or supports a preacher of the Krishna consciousness movement will certainly find it very easy to traverse the path of liberation and taste the nectar of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, and thus he will be engaged in his devotional service. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the second volume, 34th chapter of Krishna. The great sage Narada visits the different homes of Lord Krishna. Jai Shri Krishna. That's wonderful. So we're going to chat real quickly because this gets to be a little bit of a long video. Okay, short but sweet. All right, Bill, thank you very much. We will see you for the next exciting adventure of Krishna.